This is John's controller, and he wants both of the thumb clicks. He wants them both placed here. I'm not sure exactly how he holds his controller, but he sent it to me with a sticker marked for where he wants them. And I'm going to use his controller as a way of demonstrating how to install the thumb clicks. Now this piece isn't absolutely necessary, but it does help, so we'll throw that in there. So I'm going to show you how to install replacement thumb clicks. He also needs trigger extensions, so we'll do that as well. Okay, on the back here we can see here are all of the connections for the thumbstick. Here's an example thumbstick that I have. This is an Adafruit thumbstick, but it's the same thing effectively. And what you can see is there's a little button here on the side. This button, that little button right there is, well, it's basically one of these little momentary switches. And when you push in on the thumbstick, it depresses that button. Hard to do this in front of the camera here. Alright, so what we're doing is we're looking at the back of it, and this one is now oriented the same as both of these. And we can see that these are the connections to that little clicky. So we're just going to solder wire directly into those right here and right here to mount those little ones on the front. I have big, shaky, dumb hands, and I'm at a peculiar angle here because I'm trying to do this in front of the camera. So I'm going to use tweezers and try to get this lined up for a good solder. Two down, two to go. Once you get them in place, it's a good idea to use some hot glue to hold them down so that they're not going to get pulled around. Okay, so now that we've made those two little solder points and we've got it all hot glued in, we got to route this wire and clean stuff up a little bit. Alright, it looks like everything can go through these gaps here pretty easily. There's a gap there by the motor. I'm just going to push the wires through there. And we may even add a little more hot glue there to keep things neat and tidy. Okay, here's a little tip. So I've got the wires soldered in to both of them, fed through, and I know by looking at how I've fed them through that the ones I've fed through on the right are the right thumbstick and the ones here on the left are the left. But once I drill a hole in this faceplate and push them through, it's going to be really hard to tell them apart. And I'm super forgetful. So here's a quick little trick that will help me remember. I'll just put a little red tape on that. And on the right here, on the very tip, which will get cut off anyway, a little red tape. Now I know this one goes to this one. So now I can drill out my hole here and feed those through, and I know which one's which. So you can see why we marked that now, because we can't tell which one came from where, but we know that one comes from there. Hold them in place. And I'll mark them. All right. Once I've marked it, just scratch up the surface. This helps the hot glue stick. Once that's glued on and the glue is dry, then we need to solder on our leads. Tend to clip them down to a more easily manageable length. So, let's see if we can't solder this in place. Again, it doesn't matter which wire goes onto the switch at which side, just as long as they're both from the right thumbstick. Well, in this case, the left thumbstick. The correct thumbstick, I should say. I would love it if there were some plug-and-play solution for this. I have giant, clumsy hands, and this is quite difficult for me. Not to mention how shaky I am generally from all the caffeine I consume. Okay, that one is done. Time for the right one. These are now soldered on, and you can see it was really simple. It's just 2 wires for each one. I could probably even reduce that, but I'm not going to worry about it. And I should be able to plug in the controller now and push that, and it should work. Let's test it before we assemble the rest of everything. Okay, to test a controller like this, what I do is I plug it into my computer by USB, and I open up the control panel and I make sure that it's actually working. Unfortunately, John's controller for some reason won't connect to my computer. So I've got this extra here that's a donor. I plug it in and it works. I don't know why his won't, but I went and tested it on another computer that has the Xbox dongle, so it'll connect wirelessly, and it worked beautifully. So I've already tested it, it works, but I'm showing you how here. So here are the properties. You can see I move things around, and if I push the click, that little 10 light lights up. And then when I'm testing, I'll push that other button and make sure the lights light up, and then I know it's all functional. And it did work. John's worked beautifully on my other computer that I can't film on right now. So let's finish up the build. So here's John's finished controller. It's got these thumb clickies that take virtually no pressure to push. You can still get to all the buttons. And then these trigger extensions, which if you pull them down, they do the shoulder button. And if you push them up, they push the trigger. So those are all the mods to his controller, ready to ship.